How's it going? We'll be doing a project on cancel culture, which is a very current topic as we see in the news around now. And we think that there's basic social questions involved in this because there's an argument that we have here, and we're going to run through some cases. And now over to Griffin on cancel culture.
So what is cancel culture? Cancel culture is basically the act of canceling a person, brands, and even shows and movies due to what some consider to be an offensive or problematic remarks or ideologies. Cancel culture is a culture in which people band together to expose those who have made poor decisions in their past and have done or said things that are insensitive to certain racial and religious groups. In my opinion, some of cancel culture can be justified. However, in most cases, cancel culture does cross the line and ends up ruining many people's lives.
For me, cancel culture can be a very harmful thing in some instances. When cancel culture is normalized, the idea of second chances is taken away. I have always been taught that when you mess up, you take responsibility for your actions by saying sorry to the parties that you hurt, but then you get back up and you keep moving forward. This type of culture is against the second chance and is bad for people's health. I find that it is immoral to cancel someone that is truly sorry for their actions, and we will talk about some situations later on where these people don't get a second chance when they are truly sorry. With that being said, there are some instances where someone truly does something morally wrong, and there's a serious reason for them to be fired from their job because they hurt people that bad. I do not consider that to be cancel culture, though, because it is something that has to happen. And now we made an argument for cancel culture here. So this argument is for cancel culture, and then we're going to run through some cases. So line 1, when people say hurtful things or perform immoral actions, other people can be negatively affected. 2, if someone does something extremely morally wrong, they should face consequences for it. And 3, among those consequences is losing a place of power or a job. We're going to be talking about some wrongful cases of cancel culture. So the first one, there was a faculty member at USC that was placed on leave for simply using a Mandarin word that some people thought sounded like the N-word. But this word was actually a Mandarin word for that. This is a very harmful example of cancel culture because he did nothing wrong and was punished for this. With our culture shifting towards a normalizing of not having second chances, it is important to know the actual facts about a case before people start spreading lies about it that will eventually harm an innocent person. This case does not fall under the argument given above because the teacher did not actually do anything wrong, but was still punished. This is a big problem with cancel culture because so many people can get hurt for just doing their job.
So another case for a wrongful case of cancel culture is the case of Sky Jackson, who is using her social media platform as she is a well-known actress, especially for younger kids, and she used her social media platform to expose people that have made wrong decisions in their past. A certain case is when she got a kid expelled, and not only does the kid get expelled, but she got both of the kid's parents fired from their jobs, and she used the platform to do so. And in her words, she used to justify it, saying, "I really hope that they learn from this and educate themselves, because everyone does make mistakes, but it's up to you to learn from them and move forward." It's a good quote. However, her quote contradicts herself, as it is why you should not cancel them, because it's almost impossible to move forward and learn from their mistakes when cancel culture cancels them and makes it virtually impossible to make friends, get into a new school, and get new jobs when the first thing you look up is related to something that is racist or a mistake that they made in their past.
Good.
So cancel culture isn't always wrong. There are some very few cases in which cancel culture is morally right. So in the case of Kathy Griffin is a great example, in my opinion, of a case in which cancel culture is justified and morally permissible. In the case of Kathy Griffin, she posted a picture on Twitter of her with the severed head of former President Donald Trump. This crossed the line and can justifiably be known as a threat. The consequences in Kathy Griffin's case was that she lost her job of hosting the annual CNN New Year's Eve event. This was the right decision as the consequence, because she crossed the line by doing what she did, especially to the President of the United States, and the consequence has to fit the action. So Aristotle would also agree with this. Aristotle thinks that if someone wrongs us because they think that we have no worth, neither intrinstic nor instrumental, then we might be justified in seeking revenge. In the case of Kathy Griffin, she deserved to lose her job in this case because she put it out there for the world to see that she has a severed head of Donald Trump. In no situation is this right, and there needs to be a consequence for that.
I think you're right there, Griffin, because I think when Kathy posted that picture that she knew something was going to come to her. I think that she had to own up to her own actions and put out a statement saying she was sorry. I think that if she was truly sorry and proved to everyone that she wouldn't do anything like this again, then maybe everyone should actually give her a second chance. Because cancel culture isn't always like that. Sometimes someone has to pay a price for what they did wrong, but also have to learn from it and get better. Imagine if Donald Trump's son would have seen that. He would have seen a picture of his father with his head severed off. That could have given him serious PTSD and actually could have hurt him.
A great point, Justin. And to go off of that, even in this serious case of Kathy Griffin, cancel culture should not prevail, and she should always still get that second chance down the road, because everyone still deserves that second chance, and no one deserves for their whole life and career to be ruined over one bad mistake. Another case of cancel culture is the famous Dr. Seuss, in which he was canceled because of racist imagery that was in his books. So there is no doubt that Dr. Seuss has been a very influential person to society, and especially big part to children growing up, especially who read his books. He was canceled by cancel culture because of some of his books and the illustrations that were in it. And to play devil's advocate here, I agree with cancel culture in the sense that the illustrations in some of his books were insensitive and almost racist towards racial groups and especially Asian people. For example, in one of his books, an illustration showed one of a Chinese man as a man with very small eyes, and his color was yellow, and he was eating noodles with chopsticks. However, some people may argue that the chopsticks and noodles could be considered correct. It is a very overgeneralization of Chinese people that is insensitive towards Chinese people as a race. Therefore, Dr. Seuss could, in this case, be canceled for it.
I do not think Dr. Seuss should have been canceled because he did not mean any harm in his books. Even though there are only certain books that people think should be canceled, his reputation is tarnished when the media talks about him in bad ways like this. People who listen to the media are less likely to read other Dr. Seuss books because they heard something he said was racist. When parents strip their children of Dr. Seuss books, this actually would hinder their further education because as I know, growing up, I loved Dr. Seuss books and actually learned a lot of valuable lessons. You learn counting in those books and everything. But obviously, this is a different case because Dr. Seuss was dead when he was canceled. Therefore, he could not lose his job, but he did lose part of his impact that he left on this earth. And that impact was children's books that everyone loved growing up. And just because he was writing books 60 years ago and messed up once, I don't think that every single book should be tarnished.
Justin, you make a good point there. And I also just want to say that some people may argue for Dr. Seuss in the case and say that, hey, maybe it was just because of the time he was brought up and the society around him. And that would be incorrect to say that it would still be morally impermissible in this case. Because to say that society affected the morality of his actions in the books and illustrations would be accepting cultural relativism, which would be incorrect in this case.
You're actually right there, Griffin, because I was thinking back to earlier in classes here when we looked about the argument about Hitler and how Hitler thought he wasn't doing anything wrong. But obviously Dr. Seuss is a very different case. But what he did was still wrong. And I actually do think that we should take those books off the shelves because we don't want kids reading this and growing up and making the same mistakes that people made like over 100 years ago.
So, Justin, would you say that Dr. Seuss should be canceled, or do you think just those books should be taken off the shelves?
I don't think he should be canceled. I think we should just take the books that were called racist off the shelves because I'm just looking back up at our argument up here, and I think that this case contradicts the third part of the argument because it says among those consequences is losing a place of power or work. And I don't think we should take all of Dr. Seuss's work away. I think we should just take the parts that we think are maybe a little bit iffy in today's society. But other than that, I think that Dr. Seuss serves a great part to society today.
So as we wrap things up, we just got to go back to the argument of cancel culture as number one, when people say hurtful things or perform immoral actions, other people can be negatively affected. 2, if someone does extremely morally wrong, they should face consequences for it. And number 3, among those consequences is losing a place of power or work.
So now looking at these lines, so I think 1 and 2 are actually in valid form because I do believe that when someone does something wrong that hurts someone, they should own up to it and make up for their mistakes. Part of this process is letting the people know they were hurt, that it will never happen again.
And we could just go back to the point that of the philosopher Aristotle, who we earlier quoted that justified revenge. However, he also stated that we are often wrong about what we deserve and we often misread other people's intentions. So this alone makes determining when revenge is justified very difficult. So in this case, even someone that justifies revenge that is morally right, he also says how hard it is to say when revenge is justified. Therefore, when you don't know when revenge is truly justified, you never know when you're making the morally right action.
So now to sum things up, line 3 is not valid, thus making the whole argument invalid because someone should not lose their whole livelihood just because of one mistake. As we saw above, there are cases where someone does not even do anything wrong, but cancel culture comes after them anyway and takes away their job. People can still serve society well even if they messed up once. Just as Dr. Seuss may have had some bad images in his books, but that does not mean that we should stop having our children read all his other books. They should still read those books and still grow up to be great people.